What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with my guest, Nancy Tertre, who is an attorney trained in securities, litigation, and corporate law, who became a psychic detective and spiritual medium. She now works with law enforcement and victims' families on missing persons and homicide cases. She's also a medical intuitive, energy healer, and paranormal investigator. She's also trained as a spiritual medium with the Spiritual Life Fellowship in New Jersey and a member of the British Spiritualist National Union, representing more than 340 spiritualist churches in England since 1853. Now, Nancy has studied with several established British and American mediums, and she joins me today to discuss her latest book, How to Talk to an Alien. Nancy Tertre, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you on. It's an interesting direction this book is going to, this whole interview is going to go in, and especially where this book comes from as well, which is How to Talk to an Alien. Now, this is not your first book, obviously. This is one of, I believe, this is the third book, is it?
It's actually the fifth book.
The fifth book.
Counter.
Right, because on Amazon there's only, I think I only found 3 books, but this is a 5th book.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have been busy. Well, you know what, let's start with the beginning with you. I think that's going to help me out with this interview and for the audience as well. Now, I believe your family, you know, they're very highly educated, but to look at a truth beyond this reality, look at the ideas of why we're here. Is it true to say they're very much stuck in science, for example, or that you could even class them as atheists?
Well, that's interesting. I never thought of them as atheists before, but in a funny way, they both sort of trended. Both my parents sort of trended in that direction. Um, and in terms of science, I mean, my father is a medical scientist. He's a well-known gastroenterologist, or he was. He's retired now. But when I was a little girl, for the day that the fathers take their daughters to the office, I would get taken to the laboratories where there'd be big radiation signs on the doors, and we'd go in, and he would do usually like an operation on an animal. Very often rats, but it could have been dogs, monkeys, cats, giant frogs, you name it. And so I watched him do operations. So yeah, that's the environment that I come out of.
And what was that house? Did it in that household? Was it ever talked about spiritual subjects, or these some of the ideas that you've explored in just their bare basicness?
No, no, not at all. Nothing. Since they weren't. I mean, I got brought up Congregationalist, which is a type of sort of very relaxed, casual New England Protestantism. But, we didn't talk about it. My father my mother had to drag him to get him to go to church at all. And we didn't discuss psychic things. We didn't discuss ghosts. We didn't discuss paranormal. We absolutely did not discuss UFOs or anything like that. Just, didn't happen.
So what's their views on your work as it stands now? What has happened to their daughter?
What I wish I knew. Oh my goodness, that's a tough question. My mother has become rather, I would say, open to many, many concepts, even though she doesn't understand them, but she's senile. My father, I haven't spoken with for decades. And so I have no idea what he thinks. I don't know.
Right. Are mum and dad still together, are they, or?
No, they separated a long, long time ago.
Right. Wow. Okay. So, well, okay. So lots going on in the personal side in that perspective. Healing, it sounds like, is obviously that's going to be taking place at some point with Dad. That's interesting. That family perspective. So you've really had to be standing on your own 2 feet here with this work.
Absolutely.
That's very difficult.
That's my pathway.
That's very difficult. So you've taken the hard pathway in this life, in a sense.
I wouldn't call it hard. I think I said since I was a little girl, I think I was born under lucky stars. Mm-hmm. I am exceptionally blessed and lucky, and I have been given unbelievable opportunities in life.
Absolutely. I meant hard from the perspective that you can't ring up Dad and just say, discuss things on the same level, and for him to be accepting and even maybe on the same level as what you do. Hard in that perspective, I mean.
There is no conversation. So when you grow up and there is never a conversation, and I mean pretty much never since yay big, you don't grow up with the expectation of a dialogue. His thing was he lived in books. Books are his friends. Books were the characters of his life. So there wasn't much of an interaction.
Absolutely not. And I've experienced quite the opposite with my family. They've been very supportive of the work, and and I'm most grateful for that. But then again, if I hadn't had that experience, would I have still gone down the same path? Well, you have, so potentially I could have done as well, but who knows? Who knows? What actually led you down this path? What was the catalyst that got you from, you was an attorney trained in securities litigation and corporate law, and then we've got this switch over then to a psychic detective and spiritual medium. What was the catalyst? What happened in your life?
There wasn't a particular catalyst. I started to have some particularly strong experiences with deceased spirits or spirits of deceased. Discounted it, thought, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't get it. It doesn't, I couldn't incorporate it in my life. But I started doing some work in intuitive Gestalt psychotherapy. And that was very, very powerful because for me, I mean, it was sort of okay. It was not because it was somewhat verifiable, somewhat reliable and consistent and somewhat scientific. So I started out trying to help one of my mentors who had created the system of Gestalt psychotherapy to write his book, and then he didn't do it. So I thought, all right, well, if he's not going to do it, then somebody's got to write this book about the psychology of intuition. And as soon as I did that, I discovered the scientists, the psychologists, psychiatrists, neuroscientists, nobody was interested in intuition, or they were mislabeling it at things like empathy or transference or countertransference, and it's not any of those things. It's much more subtle, and it's a different process altogether. So anyway, so I started interviewing psychics and mediums and medical intuitives, and I mean, you name it. Anybody that I could sort of get my hands on who was interested in intuition or knew something about it. And at that point, I ended up sitting in a classroom with a woman who also became one of my mentors. She's a psychic detective. She's well known in the U.S. And I said, listen, I'd just like to sit in on some of your workshops just to see how you do this and how you teach this and what it is. And I ended up doing that for about 10 years. I became apprenticed, and it turned out I had some ability. I fought every single step of the way because I didn't believe it.
Yeah,
so I still have a hard time with it.
I thought you was going to say that. I think you're still fighting it now.
Of course.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because when you're trained from a very, very young age to be logical and analytic, and all of your greatest accomplishments and achievements and all the pats on the head all come from being logical, you don't go into the illogical. You don't go into places that you can't back engineer the answer, because otherwise that's called this really icky stuff called guessing, which is like, oh no, we don't guess. That's for, fluffy-headed people. So I fight that. I fight that constantly.
But you're still showing up for the work, though.
But for the
work that you do, you're still showing up. You're still showing up to deliver the messages. You're still showing up to bring texts in. From the example, the latest book you've done, you're still showing up.
Oh, I'm still showing up. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So it's yeah. I can empathize with you, and I can understand about the fighting in one perspective. I really can, because I think there's always that left side of your brain where the ego is as well in some respects. That's always trying to base itself in logic, and I think probably as you demonstrate to yourself and the ego that actually there is something credible in this. There is a process in this, and there is something of value in this, that you allow yourself to open up new doorways, which you have. But I do understand that fighting yourself. It can be a lifetime sometimes, but it gets easier. What were some of the spiritual textbooks that really stood out to you when you started getting into this subject, and what really resonated with you?
The spiritual subjects?
The books. What books resonated with you? What authors really resonated with you when you started reading up on different mediums, different psychics, or different channelers, for example?
I didn't resonate with any of them. I read a lot. I still read a ton of books, but I can't say that I resonated because I wasn't one of them. And from everything I always understood, you had to be born that way. And so clearly I wasn't. So, what was there really to understand except for something intellectual about them? I would say, though, that what happened experientially after reading a lot of these things, helped to kind of change me. I'll give you an example. I would say one of the very, very first books that I had read about mediumship was it was a book written by James von Prague, who's well known in the U.S. And he had, I forget what it was that he had said, but it started me thinking. And I was living in Manhattan, and I had a housekeeper at the time. She was from Jamaica, and I got associated with her a bunch of names, just names. I heard them in my head, and then I got the ridiculous, in my estimation, the word peanut. And I'm thinking, okay, so now my next job is I have to go and make a fool of myself. That's like the really hard part, because you take all of your nonsensical information and you put it out there. So I went into her and I said, Carmen, are you familiar with any of these names? These names mean anything to you? And I listed them off. Every single one of them was a relative of hers. Oh, and I forgot to say this. I got the name Carla. And I thought, well, that's unusual. That's not really that's a very German sounding name. You wouldn't associate it with a Jamaican lady. And I said, and I walked away because I figured, okay, I better stop while I'm ahead. I got all the names right. Good. I'm walking away and I said, oh, all right, fine. I go back and I say, do you happen to know the name Carla and something about peanuts? And she said, oh, sure, Mom. Sure, I know all about that. Yes, Carla's my boyfriend. Yeah. He makes me loves his peanuts. Got to go and buy peanuts for him every day. And then sometimes I make them in a shake. And she goes on and on. Oh, it wasn't Carla. It's Carl with a Jamaican accent. Anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, but then how that took a lot of trust to bring that through, and look at when you did trust it, how much how much truth was in there.
Absolutely, of course, and you cannot, once you get feedback, you can't avoid it, or you could try to, but it gets harder and harder and harder. And that's the whole thing. It took me decades of getting continuous feedback that was accurate, and it was good. And I fought every step of the way. I said it's probability, chance, guessing, something.
How much do you trust spirit nowadays then?
I think, how much do I trust spirit? Spirit is everything. I mean, I don't really talk about it too much, because for me it's very, very deep, very private, and I don't like to impose my perceptions on other people. What I try to do is to gather as much information about spirit that I think is going to be useful for people, and then I try to convey it.
Yes, you do that in your books very well, but what about your truth? I mean, isn't your truth valid? Is it not worth talking about?
Oh, my goodness. I did not expect you to be this tough. Yes, my truth is valid. Thank you. It is.
Yeah, I think it is. I think everyone has their own perception of truth, and I think every truth is different, of course. I mean, not one truth is going to be the same, but isn't that maybe how it is on the other side, that all truth is different? There is not one truth. There's many truths, even to those who have crossed over, even to those enlightened beings who are, have been on that side for longer than we have, who don't incarnate here anymore, are still making their own truth up as they go along.
I think I have a certain amount of conflict with that, because I think that we reabsorb into a much larger consciousness, but I think also that consciousness contains all of those different perspectives. And so it's a matter of movement through that consciousness that you arrive at, if you want to call it almost like it's not quite a space-time location, but a perspective that allows you to sort of look through whatever that lens is.
Now there's a beautiful truth. See, it's in there. Now that's very nice what you've just shared with us just there. Now that's another perspective on truth. You know, is it the ultimate truth? It doesn't have to be, does it? It's just your truth as far as you know it right now, and I think it is of great value.
Of course, that's
Yeah.
that's like nourishment, you know. And
Yeah.
I think if everyone could feel their own truth that way and live by their own truth, I think that people would be calmer and happier.
Yes, and and if we just respected each other's truths as well, the world would express those values as well. But you know, we are in a young stage right now. I'm sure we are, and you know, we're where we all need to be. But it doesn't have to be so difficult, does it? I suppose. With some of the detective work as well that you've done, which is fascinating, by the way, the psychic detective work. How accurate has some of that been?
Oh, I mean, it's been to the point where I just get sort of blown away. I mean, and again, I'm not 100%, by no means. I mean, I make plenty of mistakes and errors and don't get things dead on. But when I do, I get shocked every single time. I'm shocked. And so, for example, being able to locate a dead body or the location where a body was dumped or whatever, and it correlates exactly. I mean, exactly with whatever the police locations, you know, where they were, or where they were excavating or dredging or whatever they were doing. When you get descriptions of suspects, when you get names, it's extraordinary. There was one case that I did, I don't know, this was maybe a year ago, and I was working for the victim's family as opposed to law enforcement. And I knew nothing. Normally what I do, my process is I do what I call an advanced reading. I ask the person to give me whatever questions they have or photographs or whatever, and I work off of that. And that's my way of not being contaminated with hearing their responses or seeing their response or any of that. No feedback. And they were inquiring about their missing son, and I got his first and his middle name, and they were very unusual, you know, complex names. And I thought, I mean, what are the odds of that? I mean, it's beyond anything that you could calculate or really say, oh yeah, well that was probability. It just doesn't. You can't do that. And it turns out that it was a homicide. Most of these cases are homicides.
It's just incredible, the gift that you've got in that perspective as well. And I suppose as the years have gone on, you sort of take it in your stride. If you don't get some bits wrong, it doesn't destroy you and destroy your ability to keep, you know, using this gift. It just, you know, you just have to keep carrying on because, you know, you are a filter, aren't you, in a sense, and not everything's going to come through clear sometimes, is it?
Yeah, you obviously know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, we're all filters, and that's the whole thing. And when you're training to do this, which is what I've done, I'm only trained. It's not a natural gift. But when you're training your filters to understand what it is you're seeing. So that another example was I had a friend who had called up and said that she was there was an employee who had gone missing at their workplace, and I had, long story short, they thought that he had, I don't know, maybe had some type of an accident in the woods, got lost, was out of touch, whatever. To me, he had shot himself in the head in his car, and I saw it as a, what was it? I saw a pale blue car, and I saw it on a piece of, it looked like asphalt, that was in the shape of Texas. So as it turned out, yes, he had shot himself in the head in his car. his car was white, not pale blue. And when you do this kind of work, you begin to understand that pale blue and white are almost indistinguishable in the mental psychic world. And this, I was bothered by the shape of this asphalt being because we didn't know where he was, and I didn't think that he'd actually gone to Texas. And it had a symbolic feeling. So then you have to distinguish between what's literal, what's symbolic when you're doing the interpretation. And as it turned out, his body was found eventually in a place in New Jersey, a county that is shaped it's almost a complete dead ringer for the state of Texas. I mean, everything. But I wasn't thinking that county. So you have to train yourself to examine all the possibilities, too, when you're looking at how to interpret something the right way. Otherwise, it'll come off, what we would call wrong. But the wrong part is mostly in the interpretation. It's not in the actual sensory data that you're getting.
No, and that's so much trust. What you're doing there, just and to have built that discrepancy up as well. It's not easy. And you say as well. You said at the beginning of that you said that it's not a natural gift. It's something that you've trained. But if you are a soul potentially that came from somewhere that goes back to it, then surely as a soul, without this heavy veil that we have on that forgets us who we truly are, as we go through life remembering who we may be with our gifts that we open up to us, or as we go through life and we bump into different people and they remind us that there may be more than this reality. But surely if we are a soul, then we are naturally intuitive, we are naturally psychic, we are naturally all-knowing, because we come from source, we go back to it, we are connected to that. So really, maybe it's not a form of training that you've gone through, maybe you've gone through a form of reawakening.
Of course. And that's what it is for everybody. I'm very, very sensitive to language, because people usually only hear things a certain way if they're expressed a certain way. And since I'm used to speaking with people who are what you would call technically non-spiritual, they're very pragmatic, empirical types of people, they don't hear that kind of language. I'm talking about, going back to the source and this and that, and it's like goes in and goes out. So, I don't say it that way. The way that I explain it is a form of retraining and relearning. What you're doing is exactly what you're saying, which is you're going back to the original place, which is, and generally there's a window of time in our development as humans where we become extremely psychic. It's usually between about 3 and maybe 6 or 7. We also, that's the window of time when we learn second languages the best. That's also the window of time where it's been said that we have perfect pitch. And we begin to lose all of these things. And what I suggest in my book, Psychic Intuition, is that we lose them because through language, which by the way is sequential and therefore takes up time to get from the beginning of the sentence to the end of the sentence, we've now burned up a couple of seconds, as opposed to holistic, just it's all there. What happens is that we begin to think abstractly. And any abstract thought is, if you could boil it down to a mathematical equation, would be something like, A is equivalent to B. And once you've set up the two things, you have a thought. And thoughts can be memorized and remembered. It's much more difficult to just have A, because what do you compare A to? A is just A, and A is 100% sensory, full-blown life experience, and that's where spirit resides.
Yeah. And I think, even on this level, to try to understand it, to have read as many books as we could possibly in this life that resonates over the course of our life. I just don't think words and there's no real understanding of what it is on this level. It's beyond our conceptualization even, I feel. There's glimpses of it sometimes, but what matters is now, isn't it? All that matters is the present moment now. That's what really matters. But the reason I love to discuss these subjects is what could we bring from them to make the moment now better, to improve now? What lost information or extra learning can we bring through? And that's what your books do. It's bringing through learning lessons and teachings, in a sense, to empower us in the moment now. And I think that's very important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you give readings to people still? Is that a service that you still offer?
Oh, sure. I did readings today.
Right. Is that through your website that people can contact you? And that website
and
is?
If they're interested, it's theskepticalpsychic.com.
Skeptical Psychic, I love it. What made you choose that name?
Oh, because it's true. I mean, and it embodies a contradiction, but in every if you've got polar opposites somehow fused together, you've got some form of truth.
Well, yes, and it's your truth, absolutely, and no one could take that away from you. You've been very honest about everything you're doing, and you've been honest to yourself. So yeah, that's truth, definitely. I think, would you say that your work's gone in directions that you could never have possibly foreseen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I started out, I've owned and operated a bunch of businesses. I practiced securities litigation in New York for about a decade. I ran a family-owned porcelain business in France, or I ran the U.S. operations of it. And then I did that sort of detour where I wrote the book Psychic Intuition, and that took me I became also a trained spiritual medium, a somewhat trained medical intuitive, although that's a little bit more natural with me, an energy healer, and all of that psychic and the psychic detective work. And I slowly moved off into the paranormal world. And I went there very, very slowly. I was not running into that because I knew that you don't go into that well armed. And I tell all my students, I think that you should always know your spiritual allies, always, when you're doing any of this work, because you're not 100% in your element, because all of us are also in this 3D world. And, so there are things that we sometimes can perceive and experience and sometimes not, but in the spirit world, they are perceived. So know who your allies are and know yourself. And from that, I had a rather significant UFO sighting, which was about 5 years ago. And then I began to put together a whole bunch of pieces. And I've seen many UFOs since, and also realized before. That got me off into the UFO realm, which never, ever did I think, that I was going to be interested in, because I wasn't.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, your books, previous to How to Talk to an Alien, have never mentioned anything about UFOs. They've always been about psychic intuition and growth and asking those deeper questions and being able to go within to find them.
Actually, I did discover, I was taking another look at psychic intuition, and I ran across a little sentence that I'd written there. I'd totally forgotten about it. And I said, well, I've now gone through enough stuff so that I have no doubts. I'm absolutely convinced that there's spirits all around us, deceased persons, ghosts, that kind of thing, because I have experienced them with all my five senses. But a space alien would probably have to, come up and talk to me face to face before I'd ever believe that. Oh, well, forget famous last words, forget. Or be careful what you hope for or don't hope for.
Yeah, I would say also, yeah, never say never as well. That's interesting. So you did have a line in there of something. Well, okay, I missed that. Yeah, okay, okay. So, but that was only just very brief. I mean, this is we're going to get into how to talk to an alien, just very shortly. Well, we're heading towards that now. But I mean, you did have a radio show as well.
Yeah, I had a CBS radio show for about 4 years.
Yeah, and that's interesting as well that you were into these subjects. You were practicing medium and psychic, and yet you still interviewed other people and were expanding your knowledge of different subjects as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're doing that. There must be a good reason for that.
You know what? I started off as a talk show host with a lot of ego, I think sometimes, and lost all the ego, lost everything. And at the time when my lowest point where I literally lost everything, that was when the channeling started for me. And, I'm very much like yourself, fought it all the way. Even to the point of this weekend where I went to a Mind Body Spirit event, and a local one where I'm just based right now, and there was a medium that was going to come on to do a group talk and then give some readings out to the audience. And I was kind of going to leave, and I thought, no, you know what? Me and the mentor that's been helping me progress this channeling, I said, look, no, we'll stay. Okay, so the medium comes up to the person next to me, and he says to her, with Pauline, her name is, there's a book to write. I've been told by Spirit, you've got to write these books. They're really important. You must write these books. I don't know why I'm being told to tell you this, but there's books to write. She looks at me. I'm like, oh my God, isn't that just incredible that it's come through this guy who I'd never met before in my life, and I'm being told through channeling that there's many books to write. I've got to write these books, and then all of a sudden, this chap's coming in. It's just little things like that sometimes where you can't make it up. It's easy, you could make it up, but I'm not making up because it's the truth, and and it just, it shakes you sometimes. These little things that you have to have faith in what you're doing. That you have to have the trust there. That there is a bigger picture. You're not making it up. It's not all in your head, and it's to be of service to people, which is what you're doing.
That's the whole key. It is, of course, it's of service to people. That's really important. And, I have been on radio shows, broadcast radio with millions of listeners where they were told in advance by me through my publicist, I don't like to do readings on air, by the way, because for me, it's not entertainment. It's something very, very important and fundamental, and it's real. And they said, okay, sure, no problem. Well, of course, they talked to me a little bit, and then, okay, we're going to go straight to the callers now. We have, umpteen callers lined up, and they all want to ask you for, psychic questions. And at that point, of course, you can't duck out of it. So I did, and I delivered these, it just felt awful, 15, 30-second readings to people. There was one guy who called in, and basically he said, well, both my parents just died, and my sister died, my dog died. I've been diagnosed with terminal disease. I lost my job. My home has been foreclosed. I mean, it went on and on and on. So what do you think? What do you see for my future? And boom, you're on the radio. There's no time for dead air. You just launch. And I thought, oh, this is such an injustice to this poor guy. I mean, he needs a lot of focus on this, and there are many, many, many issues involved. People don't get that. They think it's it's fun stuff. Yeah. And by the way, that's another reason I don't really go around advertising this too much. But one of the reasons why I do it, what I called an advanced reading, is yes, it helps me. But more than that, and I don't tell my clients this normally, it helps them. I want them to focus, because if they're only getting in touch with me because, they think it would be, kind of cool to know what's going to happen or whatever, and they don't have a question, they should go see somebody else. They should go see, a palm reader or somebody.
That is so interesting what you're saying, because it's almost like, spirit doesn't, higher dimensional beings, in a sense, let's just put the spirit guides to one side, or someone's dead relative in it, perhaps past, but someone that's maybe guiding them through their life. It may be their relative, but I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying if it's not. But my point is that they want to come through, I think, to give help, to not give them the answers, but to help them find their own answers, to empower them. And And
I tell my clients, I really try not to come back to me. Otherwise, we've missed the boat here. Then I haven't really done totally my job. My job is to help you get whatever it is to get onto that track that you already know. By the way, everybody knows the correct track. They just have gotten distracted, and to get them back on it, maybe give them a little perspective and get them moving. And I don't mind if they come back periodically, but I am in no way interested in having regular clients. I don't want that.
What about regular clients who were maybe once a year, who just wanted a bit of top up? Yeah, just they're still I think they're more empowered then, in a sense. But because they're consulting, maybe you could say their higher self through you. There's whoever it is that's coming through you. But that's fine. But you're talking about people who are addicted to I can't think of the word right now, but psychic junkies, in a sense.
Yeah, and generally, you can kind of recognize them because they don't want to hear what you have to say. They'll move on to something else, usually very quickly.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I wish more psychics were like you, in a sense, or more. I don't think it's a psychic's fault sometimes, because even some of these bigger phone operators, it's the people behind the companies sometimes, not some, as well. Do you know what I mean? Where you see these TV shows as well, which if it was me, I'd be doing it in a completely different perspective. But you have to be when you've gone through what you've gone through, and you've had to progress like you have, you see it differently, and and it's really interesting to hear that different perspective. I appreciate that.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I know we've only got 51 minutes here, and there's so much good stuff we could talk about, and it's so interesting, your individual story. It really, really is, and the perspective you've come from as well. And sorry if I was being a bit hard earlier on. I just needed to get some things out of you. That's all. And it's I'll get that spiritual whip out. But no, very, very interesting. Yeah. So
just want to know one.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a reflection right now, I think. But I'm taking some good stuff away from you, and I appreciate that. Now, how to talk to an alien? Just first of all, why did you choose that title?
Well, because that's what it is, and I think it's catchy, and I think that most people, it's got a little bit of shock value to it. And as I tell everybody, I'm very politically incorrect. I will say alien as opposed to star visitor or extraterrestrial or whatever. I'll say psychic as opposed to sensitive or intuitive. Abductions instead of or abductees instead of experiencers. So alien. That worked fine. And my husband actually had said to me, you need to tell everybody you've been talking to an alien for a long time, because he's French. And in fact, what I wanted to do, I don't know if you ever saw the Coneheads Saturday Night Live. Did that make that over there?
It did, but it's a long time ago. I know which one you're talking about.
Well, there's been a resurgence of the Coneheads over here with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin. But anyway, they had the really tall. And they would come in and say, hello, my name is, and I forget what they were. We are from France. And Oh, yeah, that's really good. So I actually got in touch with Dan Aykroyd's office, spoke with somebody, his secretary over there, said, would he give me permission to use that? And he said, yeah, sure. So I tried. But then the movie theaters wouldn't give me the production company wouldn't give me permission. But that would have been perfect. So yes, talking to an alien, because I've been talking to.
That's great. Yeah. Well, okay then. So yeah, because there is a lot of substance in this book, but okay. Just going back briefly to your UFO encounter, just very, very quickly, just what was that encounter like? How big was the craft, and how long did it last for, the experience?
I was coming out of a movie theater with my daughter. It was absolutely deserted. There was nobody around. It was very dark night. It was midnight, very high cloud cover. My daughter pointed up in the sky and said, "What's that?" And I saw a mass of about 20 or 30 orange lights. And I thought, well, that's just totally peculiar. And they're just sitting there. Eventually, we kept staring at it, and I'm trying to analyze it and figure out what the heck it is. And eventually you could see it was the shape of a boomerang. It was the size of a football field. And it sat there for, it's very hard to tell when you're seeing something that shocking to gauge time. And the movie we had just finished seeing was actually Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris, which is all about going backwards in time. So that was kind of interesting. But I would say we probably watched it for, I'm going to guess a couple of minutes. I don't know. It was enough time for an orb to open up on one side, to detach from the craft, go around the craft like it was searching for something. It was about 15 or 20 feet in diameter, go behind the craft, come back over the top, go over onto the side, reattach, and then disappear. And then we watched the entire football field-sized craft either cloak or dematerialize in 3 phases. And my daughter was terrified. She was screaming, get in the car, we have to go. And I said, no, I want to see this. I want to see what it does. I couldn't imagine what it was. It was just too peculiar.
Does your daughter ever bring up that recognition? I can't get the word out here. But does she ever bring up that memory at all?
Oh, sure. She's seen ships quite extraordinary since then. She and I have received what I have concluded are telephone call, well, how would you call them? They're interruptions into our phone calls, which I believe are from alien sources. Her friends and her have had them, and my friends and I have had them also since then. So, yeah, I think that we've got some very interesting connections. And then, of course, she said to me things like, well, you remember when we used to live in Manhattan and the black helicopters would be right outside my window, and the men would come through the walls or the windows and pull me out. And I'm saying, what? She said, yeah, I told you this. And I said, you absolutely did not tell me this. So there's a very strange, and she would have been young at that point. The only way I could make sense of that, because
isn't that strange? Yeah.
I have a pretty good memory for most things, particularly if things that my kids do or say, I tend to pay an awful lot of attention to. Something like that would have grabbed my attention in about a second. And the fact that she told me, oh, yes, and then she went on with various other stories, and I thought, well, that's just peculiar. But when you hear, or you research, you read about family members being put into states of suspended animation or memories being erased or that kind of thing, you say, well, okay, maybe, I don't know.
Now, if she had been abducted, and there's a potential there, who knows, right? This is have you ever asked that question to who you're communicating with?
No.
Would you want to hear that answer?
I don't know. See, you're still asking tough questions. I thought you were going to stop at the beginning.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. 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 I don't know.
Because there's some sort of connection there, isn't there? Let's be honest. Between me and you, there's a connection there somewhere. You know it deep down as well, I think. What that is on a bigger level, that maybe is for another book, but that there, or maybe for you personally. But there is something there. That these aren't just done for no reason.
That what are not done for no reason?
Well, the abductions and the connection you've got with who you've got this connection with now as well. I mean, yes, I'm not going to take it away that anyone can train themselves to have these intuitive connections, but I'm sure, I'm just in my own personal experience, that there's a bigger connection, a bigger backstory to this than probably what you're aware of.
What I have suggested to people is that, and this goes to the concept of how to talk to an alien, which is language is only a subset of communication. Communication by aliens can be done many, many different ways, including all different types of electronic manipulations, remote viewing, dream states, trance channeling, crop circles, symbols, you name it, including, and this is the thing I think a lot of people don't think about, which is synchronicities. And my understanding of synchronicities, which is, for anybody out there who doesn't know what that is, it's just a meaningful coincidence. And we all add meaning to all of our events in our lives. So the meaning part is added by us. However, I think that we are pushed, guided, manipulated, whatever, so that our path will intersect with another path that is supposed to be there. And I'm not saying this on a really mystical level. I'm saying this on a, if you could remote control all your human beings out there, let's say, and just because you wanted to accomplish a certain result, and you figure, okay, that's a good one to get that one done, but they need to meet that one in order to have that happen, you have them cross paths.
Yeah, and isn't that a beautiful thing when it does happen?
Yes.
It's an amazing thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's also done, I think, with consideration of our own free will as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's done with free will. I think sometimes it can be heavy-handed, which makes it very difficult to say, nah, I don't think I'm going to do that. And one of the examples, just a quick one, if we have time, a friend of mine was driving out to Phoenix, Arizona, and she loves, she's seen many, many UFOs in her life, and she always keeps a camera next to her, in the seat next to her in the car. She's driving along, and she starts to get closer to Phoenix. She sees a UFO, and thinks, oh, that's really cool. But she's sort of not, she's seen plenty. She sees 2, and she sees 3. And then it's 10. And she's still driving along thinking, whoa, something is going on here. She doesn't pull over to pick up her camera to take a picture. Pretty soon, there are, she said, about 100 of them covering the skies. It doesn't occur to her to pick up her camera, which she keeps there specially for that purpose. So I believe that was maybe her free will was overcome just a tad, because maybe they didn't want photos at that point.
And the same for you as well. When that experience happened for yourself, it's almost like time was frozen, and it was just your personal experience by the way you described it.
Of seeing the UFO you're talking about?
Yes, your UFO experience. Yeah, when you had that experience with your daughter outside the theater, to me, the way you described it was almost like there was no one else that saw that football pitch-sized craft, yeah? And it was your own personal experience, and it's almost like time stood still for you in that moment, just as it maybe had done for this other lady. And yes, there could have been manipulation in the sense of what you really saw as well, who knows, but because, you would normally grab out your phone, wouldn't you, and maybe take pictures, but that never happened in this particular case. You were too in awe.
Completely. And I said to myself, I thought I was smarter than that, but no, apparently I'm not.
Which goes back to what you were just saying there about your friend who had this camera with her at all times to take these particular pictures, who didn't. There is control, isn't there, in some sense?
Yeah, I think there is. Somebody had asked me whether I thought that it was a beautiful, beautiful white orb that had detached off of the craft, and you could sort of see it when it pulled off of it. And it was made of a light that I've never seen in the sky before. It was pure white, luminescent, uniform, and almost had a glow to it, but the rim of the orb was perfectly defined. It wasn't like normally lights that twinkle, airplane lights or stars or anything like that. It wasn't even like the rest of the orange lights. And as it was curlicuing around, I knew somehow intuitively it was searching for something. And somebody had said to me, well, do you feel like it was communicating with you? And I thought it seemed like a strange question to me. And I part of me doesn't, I think there are many, many people that have so much of an ego attached to them. They go, well, yes, it was speaking to me and it was looking for me and it, selected me out of the billions on earth and I didn't feel that, but I said to myself, it would probably be equally, I don't want to say ridiculous, but equally questionable. Say, well, how did I know that this ball of white light was looking for something? So I personified it somehow. But how did I know that?
And that's your intuitive side, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
That's your intuitive side, that's your the psychic side coming out and just having that deeper knowing that that's what it was doing.
We as human beings, scientifically speaking, we have a tendency to anthropomorphize objects so that they resemble faces or beings, so that you could pick up a rock and say, oh, what a cute little face that has, or whatever, the man in the moon or anything like that, because we can identify better, or it's what we seek out naturally. I think it's hardwired, but I think that there was something, I don't know how you could tell that something that was simply going around in little curlicue things was looking for something. That form of knowledge was odd to me.
Yeah. I mean, the whole experience is just, it's so out of our normal perspective. But then so is, having these, qualities of being able to tune into those who have crossed over. They're all. It all points towards a much bigger picture of the nature of this universe than the nature of reality.
Yes, it does.
And what consciousness is all about, and going back to how to talk to an alien. I mean, how did this communication happen? Was it just downloads? Was it telepathy in a sense? Was there a voice in your right side? I mean, where did the contents of this book come through you? But we know it came through you, but how did it come through you in a sense? I suppose that's the question.
I told you this is my fifth book. One of them was a rewrite on psychic intuition, and it's only half the original size, but 5 books, almost all of them took me about 10 years to write. This one took me 2 months. And when I had gone into my publisher and I said, well, do you think it's possible that you might be able to get this book in print within 9 months, which normally, I mean, that is publishers they're booked up for at least a year or so. They have their lists, their fall and spring lists. You can't do that. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you write this book in 2 months, and he said it has to be 100% complete, then yes, the answer is yes, we can do it. And I wrote this thing in 2 months. And it's not like I didn't have huge amounts of background in this. I had some. I don't know. So my sense is that, yes, I got help on this one. I didn't experience it as help. I didn't hear a voice. I didn't feel that I was engaging in automatic writing. It just was easy.
But then, you went with the flow, absolutely, and you're not, and okay, so we yeah, we're not saying it was this or that. We're just saying it came through you. Is that what we're saying here? Because would you say these are your words on this in this book? Is this the way you would normally talk?
Yeah, yeah.
But where did that knowledge at a deeper level come from, though?
I don't know. I don't know why I really didn't torture myself over this book. I really should have, but I didn't.
Yeah, but no, it's great. I like it that you're not actually saying, well, it was channeled or it was this, it was that, because you're not going to, because your truth is it just happened. You don't know how, in a sense, but there is value to this. There is value to this in what you've committed to pay in this book. What is there there's a theme of love in this book as well, in the sense of unconditional love is maybe an answer that they're projecting?
Oh my goodness, you're not stopping. It's amazing. You're really amazing.
Come on, we're almost at the end. I'm just trying to get it through.
Yeah, but I would never say that. But yeah, it's all over the place. Yeah. But I think you have to. That's the underlying fabric. But I'm not in there to do anything preachy. I'm just in there to deliver information.
What would you say are some of the highlights, in the sense of what would they say we're doing wrong, or do they, or what could we be doing that would make life on Earth easier, our life easier, maybe?
I think the most important thing is that we are interconnected on all different levels, and that if we screw it up, which we're doing just such a wonderful job of right now, that the repercussions, the ripple effects into not just space-time, but dimensional aspects and time aspects, forwards, backwards, sideways, and that it's sort of we're kind of like, I don't know, a bull in a china shop or something. We're not aware of the consequences of what we're doing. Yeah, we're not even truly aware of the consequences to ourselves. We think we are, but we're not. But we're not aware of entities, of spirit, of things other than what's inside our own skin. And so I think the messages are, we need to learn to go beyond that, understand the idea, the sort of Hermetic idea. Also, the microcosm is a hologram, or it's connected intimately with the macrocosm, and that once you understand that on even just an emotional level or a spiritual level, you respect things that aren't within your own skin, and you create a form of peace. You create a form of what you might call love. It's respect. And we would all be way better off doing that.
Beautiful.
I created an environmental group, and I located locally, and we tried to save 27 acres of the last woodland, and we're located about 30 minutes outside of New York City. And in doing that, I began to realize issues about, simple things like the environment. And I'm just dealing with my little local New Jersey environment. But if everybody would step up to something, take one of those emails that you get unsolicited that's begging you for money to save this or save that, or do something about some legislation, just pick one. That's all. If everybody did that, and stepped up to a sense that we're interconnected, we would all be better off. And I think that's a lot of the message. And I hate you got me into preachy mode, but that is my preachy mode.
No. I love what you're saying there, because if I just change it around, not change it around, but if I put it in my words, what you're saying there as well is that if you want to, you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. By changing yourself, you change the world. By changing yourself and making a difference around you, it has ripple effects to others.
Absolutely. Everything you just said. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's again, what greatness has come from your work to just have that as your truth as well, and to be able to share that with others. I think that speaks for everything. That does, it really does. And how have people received this book as well, this latest book?
There's been a huge response to it. I gave a presentation out at MUFON in late September of last year. And I was able to incorporate samples of, different alien speech modes and channeled speech and writing actual artifacts, recollections, and channeled. And there was a man who came up to me after I spoke, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, I just want to thank you so much, because he said, I had to leave the hall when you were talking, because when I heard some of those people speaking, I know I've heard them before, and I've never told a living soul. And I started crying, and I had to leave. So and for many people who I have corresponded with, it's so important to them. And I can't tell you the number of people who've come up to me and said, I've never told anybody, or I've only told 2 people in my life, or whatever. It's like secrets that have been held by people for so long, and it's such a relief to have some place where you can share them, because that's what this is all about, is sharing them. And then we get smarter collectively if we can do that. 2 heads are better than one. That idea.
And isn't it always amazing that the right books, or the right or the right information from the right books always hits the right people just when they need it at the right time, and it resonates with them at such a deep level as well. Do you think there's more to come from this information that you're bringing through? Do you think there's more there's more teachings to come through?
Yeah. Did you just notice? Maybe you didn't. That I could barely hear your voice.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was just saying, do you think there's more teachings to come through with another book in the future, with this angle now of whatever you're connecting with? There's more teachings to come through these different species, in a sense.
I have no doubt. And, I don't want to get, too far ahead of myself. But I already see a lot of information and sort of pushing, making it progress a little bit further down the road. So yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's absolutely fascinating what you're doing. I mean, I'm not gonna, say, well, okay, I won't compare you to other channels, because this is you, and I'm not even going to use that word in a sense. I was going to mention, I'll mention him anyway, but Bashir, from Daryl, he channels Bashir. It's got a name, but I don't think it has to have a name. I don't think that's always important. It's not, I think a name just helps us to, have a connection with, but I think it's nameless where this information is coming from, in a sense. I don't think it matters about that. I think it matters about the information more so. What is the message telling you?
Oh, you hit that nail on the head. That's absolutely what I believe. I read somewhere recently, there was some channeler that I was reading what I think it was she was saying, which is basically that there are all these different names, but the names don't really matter. I think, and the names are more for us as a point of identification, and because we're dealing with our little,
Yeah, the smaller me we're dealing with. Yeah. It's so difficult. When I'm doing this channeling right now, I'm in the process just about to start writing 2 books. And when I do this channeling, it's got a name, the channel has, but then the entities around me have no names. And I find it very difficult sometimes. But then I've had to let go, because I've realized it's not about the names. It's not about me. It's about what teaching. It's about the teachings. It's about actually getting the book out there, because I think everyone's got a book to write. And someone told me that last week actually, and it's so true. And it's about being true to yourself and sharing the message, and that's what you're doing. What would you say then is maybe the most important message of your work?
Oh, gee, no, you see, you're just continuing. See, I don't think about those things. I just think about, I don't know what I think about, but I'm just trying to do something that is useful. I don't know that there's a message other than my work has been all about building bridges between people. And sometimes I think my knowledge of language is really helpful, because I can speak to many, many different types of people in many different ways. And so if I can do that, you know how when you do this kind of work, everybody has a different starting point? I don't know if you teach this stuff. I taught this psychic development and mediumship for about 4 years around the New York tri-state area. Everybody has a different starting point. And sometimes even when you're speaking to a large audience, it's very, very hard to know in this kind of work, where do what assumptions should we start with? Well, if you can get everybody minimally on board, if you can speak to some of the lowest common denominators of understanding about our collective consciousness and elevate them, then, you've helped drag the rest of whatever along into a space of a higher form of enlightenment. And so if there's a goal, I guess that's it.
I really, really, really appreciate that. Well, we've been putting your books up on the screen. We've been putting your website up on there as well, so people can get in contact with you directly for a reading. You do readings via Skype?
I do them via Skype or, telephone or face-to-face, whatever people need.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, people can get in contact with you via the website. And I'd just like to say, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today and for taking the time to do this interview. I've learned something from this, very much so, and I'm sure other people will take a lot from this as well. Just thank you for sharing your work with the world, and please, do never give up what you're doing. Just keep shining your light.
Well, I need to tell you exactly the same thing, because I think that you're extraordinary, and I think the work that you're doing is exceptional and very important. And obviously, you know how to shine lights.
Thank you very, very much. God bless.
You too. Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.